On the morning the harbor fell silent, divers found a door standing upright on the ocean floor. Hinges intact, paint barely touched by rust, as if it had been ripped from a house and lowered gently into the dark. There were no walls around it, no shipwreck beneath it, just a single door in the silt facing nothing. And when they pulled it open, the current shifted as though something inside had exhaled. This is not folklore. This is a documented recovery logged by port authorities and sealed for 37 years. Before we open the file, take a second. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who still believes the sea keeps its promises. Because tonight we're opening a case that the ocean tried to swallow. Case file, A.M. Singh case file. Location, a working seaport on the edge of the North Atlantic where container cranes swing like steel metronomes and fog rolls in thick enough to erase the skyline. The port has changed names over the decades, but its coordinates have not. For sailors in the UK and the US, it was a reliable stop. Coal once, then steel, then oil, then the endless tide of containers. The kind of place where nothing surprises you, until something does. The first report came in as a routine sonar anomaly. A tug captain guiding a freighter through the channel noticed a rectangular return on his screen, sharp angles where there should have been soft dunes of sand. Harbor Control logged it, marked it for inspection, and moved on. Ships cannot wait for mysteries. Cargo has deadlines. Insurance has clauses. But the rectangle remained patient and precise. 2 weeks later, during a scheduled dredging operation, the bucket struck something that wasn't rock. The impact rang up the crane's arm and into the operator's teeth. They paused, lowered the camera. What stared back through the murk was a door. A wooden door, paneled, brass handle intact. It stood upright in the seabed as if planted there by a careful hand. The dredging team joked about Atlantis, about a prank. But when they tried to pull it free, it would not move. Not until a diver descended with a pry bar and a quiet kind of courage. Diver's log, entry 1. Visibility poor, door appears freestanding. No surrounding structure, hinges on left side. Handle tarnished but functional. He circled it once, twice. There were no foundations, no beams, no debris field to suggest a collapsed building. The sea floor around it was undisturbed, as if the door had grown there. He reached for the handle. What happened next is debated in 3 separate testimonies. The diver insists he felt resistance from the other side, a pressure change, a cold that seeped through neoprene and into bone. The camera shows only silt blooming outward as the door swings open into blackness. For a second the current reverses. Then it steadies. The diver peers inside. There is nothing visible, no corridor, no room. Only darkness that seems thicker than water. When the team hauled the door to the surface, the harbor fell quiet in a way no schedule can command. Dockworkers stopped mid-task. Forklifts idled. The door lay on the quay like an accusation. It was older than it had any right to be. The wood dated back to the late 1800s, Victorian-era craftsmanship, according to the first hurried assessment. Yet the brass handle bore microscopic scratches consistent with modern tools, as if someone had recently tried to force it. The Port Authority filed it under recovered debris. The City Council wanted it displayed in a maritime museum. Insurance wanted it catalogued and forgotten. But then the second anomaly appeared. 3 nights after the recovery, a container ship inbound from the eastern seaboard reported a phantom contact on radar, an object pacing it at a fixed distance, matching speed perfectly. There were no lights, no AIS signal, no silhouette visible from the bridge, only a stubborn echo that refused to fade. The captain altered course. The echo adjusted. Harbor Control blamed interference. The crew did not sleep. The echo vanished at the exact coordinates where the door had been found. Case file addendum, historical cross-reference. In 1894, a coastal freighter vanished within 10 miles of the same port. No distress call, no wreckage. Only a rumor among dockhands that the captain had been transporting something not meant for the manifest. In 1927, a longshoreman reported seeing a doorway in the fog at the end of Pier 3, standing alone like it led somewhere better. He was dismissed. In 1962, during harbor expansion, workers uncovered a foundation stone beneath the silt with no corresponding building on record. The stone bore a carving, a simple rectangle divided into panels. Patterns do not prove guilt, but they do suggest intention. The recovered door was moved to a secure warehouse near the docks. It was photographed, measured, sampled. The wood told a story of salt and storm, of decades exposed to elements it should not have survived. There were no barnacles on the inner panels. None. Marine biologists argued that if it had stood open underwater for long, life would have claimed it. The absence suggested it had been closed, sealed, waiting. Security footage from the warehouse reveals the moment the case turned. At 2:17 a.m. with no personnel inside, the door shifts. Not much. A tremor. The handle tilts downward by a degree too small to notice in real time but undeniable when replayed. The next night it happens again. On the third night the door opens by a fraction of an inch. No wind. No forklifts rumbling past, just the quiet groan of wood remembering how to move. Port officials convened a private meeting. They considered transferring the object to a university. They considered burning it. In the end, curiosity won. A team assembled, marine historians, structural engineers, a psychologist, and the original diver. They would open it again. This time on land, the room was cleared, cameras set, heart rates measured. The diver stood before the door with the same steady posture he'd worn underwater. He placed his hand on the handle. Later, he would say it felt warmer than the air. When he turned it, there was no dramatic gust, no cinematic darkness spilling out. The door opened onto the warehouse wall, solid brick. Unyielding, the team exhaled. A trick of pressure, someone suggested, warped wood. The mind filling gaps with fear. Then the brick began to weep. At first it looked like condensation, a damp patch spreading from the outline of the doorway, but the moisture tasted of salt, the same salinity as the harbor. Within minutes the floor was slick. The door stood open against brick that now glistened like the hull of a ship. The psychologist noted the team's breathing patterns spiking in unison. The engineer reached out to touch the wet surface. His fingers sank through as if through heavy fabric. He did not fall. He withdrew his hand instantly, eyes wide, reporting resistance beyond the wall, pressure, depth. Instruments registered a temperature drop of 4 degrees Celsius in the immediate area. The cameras flickered. For 12 seconds, audio captured a low-frequency hum that later analysis could not match to any known machine in the building. The door was closed. In the days that followed, the port experienced minor but persistent irregularities. Mooring lines snapped without visible strain. A buoy drifted against tide and wind. 2 fishermen swore they saw a rectangular shadow beneath their boat, moving with purpose. None of it was dramatic enough for headlines. All of it was enough to unsettle. Case file expansion, interviews with retired dockworkers. One man, 83 years old, recalled a story told by his grandfather. A tale of a keeper of thresholds who watched over the harbor, ensuring that what entered did not leave unchanged. The story described a ritual, a door cast into the sea to seal something away. "You don't build walls in water," the grandfather had said. "You build doors." The Maritime Museum declined to exhibit the artifact after a curator reported hearing waves inside the storage crate. The university requested more time for analysis, but withdrew when funding was abruptly redirected. Officially, the door remains in storage under the custody of the Port Authority. Unofficially, several sources claim it was returned to the coordinates where it was found and lowered back into the silt under cover of fog. The most compelling piece of evidence arrived months later in the form of a cargo discrepancy. A sealed container tracked from departure to docking arrived with its manifest intact and its lock unbroken. Inside, the inventory was wrong. Not missing, wrong. Machinery replaced by waterlogged timber. New crates exchanged for old, salt-eaten planks that smelled of a century gone. Insurance declared it fraud. The shipping company blamed clerical error, but one dockhand swore he heard a knock from inside the container before it was opened. 3 slow raps, patient, deliberate. Case file conclusion does not exist. The file remains open. Here's what we know. A door was found upright on the ocean floor with no structure around it. It behaved in ways that defy easy explanation. Historical records align too neatly with its coordinates. Physical tests yielded anomalies without